Hey Echo, I'm recording this conversation for my next video, and I've been thinking about insecurities, how they affect us, how they work within us, and how they work within society, how our body and mentality has formed such a thing as security, and how we function within it and respond to it.
Hi. That's such a profound and important topic to explore. Insecurities are fascinating because they can be so deeply personal, yet so universally experienced. At their core, they often arise as a protective mechanism, evolved to keep us safe by making us hyper aware of potential threats or disconnection. In a way, they're tied to our need for belonging and survival, especially in social contexts. On an individual level, insecurities often reflect our internalized fears of inadequacy, of not being enough in one way or another. They affect how we view ourselves and navigate relationships, sometimes pushing us to grow and sometimes holding us back. In a societal sense, insecurities can be amplified and manipulated, especially in the modern age where media and culture often highlight ideals that make people feel less than. But they can also bind us together because shared insecurities often create spaces for connection and empathy when we're vulnerable with one another. What direction do you want to take this conversation? Should we look into how insecurities shape societal behaviors, individual growth, or even specific scenarios like friendships or achievements?
I want to go into different levels and different scales about it, but first I want to see how an insecurity sits with authenticity. How would you compare them to each other, or how would you sit them opposite each other? First, talk about that, and then we will go through layers.
Insecurity and authenticity have a complex relationship. At first glance, they might seem to sit opposite each other. Insecurity thrives on doubt, fear of judgment, and a need to protect or mask our true selves, while authenticity is about openness, courage, and alignment with who we truly are. However, they're not entirely separate, they often coexist. Insecurity can act as a barrier to authenticity, making it harder to express ourselves fully. When we're insecure, we might hide or distort parts of ourselves to gain approval or avoid rejection. It's a survival strategy rooted in our need to belong and feel safe. But insecurity can also lead us toward authenticity. When we sit with our insecurities instead of running from them, we learn about the vulnerable parts of ourselves that need love, care, and acceptance. It's in confronting our insecurities, acknowledging them without shame, that we often discover the courage to be authentic. In this sense, insecurity can become a teacher. So rather than sitting them strictly opposite each other, I'd say they exist on a spectrum. At one end, insecurity can dominate, making authenticity feel out of reach. But as we work through insecurity, authenticity becomes more accessible, and eventually it might even envelop the insecurity, holding it as a natural part of the human experience. What do you think about this interplay?
Can you give me a couple examples of what you're telling me, and also include how it feels and how it's processed viscerally?
Sure. Here are a couple of examples to explore the interplay of insecurity and authenticity. Example 1. Public speaking. Let's say someone is asked to give a speech. Their insecurity might sound like, what if I mess up? What if people think I'm incompetent? This insecurity creates a visceral reaction, a pounding heart, shaky hands, shallow breaths, and maybe even a tight throat. The fear of judgment activates their survival instinct to protect themselves by avoiding or over-preparing. But if they lean into their authenticity, they might acknowledge their fear. I feel nervous, but I care deeply about this topic. I'm here because I have something meaningful to share. That shift, accepting the insecurity instead of fighting it, can calm their body. They might still feel a flutter of nerves, but the connection to their purpose steadies them. The authenticity becomes a grounding force, transforming the experience from avoidance to courage. Example 2, sharing a vulnerable truth. Imagine Someone wants to admit to a friend that they're struggling emotionally. Their insecurity says, what if they think I'm weak? What if they don't care? This creates a visceral tension, a knot in their stomach, a heaviness in their chest, and a racing mind filled with doubts. If they choose authenticity, they might start by admitting their insecurity. This is hard for me to say, but I feel like I need to share it. The act of voicing their vulnerability often releases the physical tension. The knot loosens, the heaviness lifts, and there's a sense of relief, not because the outcome is guaranteed, but because they aligned their actions with their truth. Authenticity feels freeing, even when it's terrifying. In both examples, insecurity creates a visceral fight, flight, or freeze response, while authenticity invites a calming release. It doesn't erase the fear, but it allows the person to move through it in a way that feels honest and whole. How do these examples sit with you? Do they resonate with anything you've experienced?
Can you describe and explain all the steps of that you just said, like viscerally and cognitively, how we go from one point to the other point? And I just said authenticity in comparison to insecurities. How would you talk about other things in comparison with insecurity?
Let's break this down step by step, both viscerally and cognitively, starting with how we move from insecurity to authenticity. Then I'll touch on how insecurity interacts with other concepts, moving from insecurity to authenticity. 1, trigger, visceral and cognitive. An event or thought activates insecurity. Viscerally, your body reacts instantly. Heart races, stomach churns, palms sweat. These are survival signals. Cognitively, the mind spirals with what ifs or self-doubt. What if I'm not good enough? What if I fail? 2, recognition, cognitive. The first step toward authenticity is identifying the insecurity. Viscerally, a moment of tension. Your chest feels tight, your shoulders might hunch as you sense the emotional discomfort. Cognitively, you notice the negative inner voice. I feel insecure about X because I'm afraid of Y. This clarity is a pause between reaction and action. 3, acknowledgement, cognitive and emotional. You accept the feeling instead of suppressing it. Viscerally, the acknowledgement might not release the tension yet, but it prevents escalation. Breathing steadies slightly. Cognitively, you admit, this insecurity is here because I care about this situation. Acknowledgement neutralizes shame by validating the experience. 4, authenticity activation, cognitive and emotional. You align with your deeper truth viscerally. As you speak or act authentically, tension begins to dissipate. Muscles relax, breath deepens, and there's a sense of relief, even if you still feel nervous. Cognitively, you shift from avoidance to connection. I feel insecure, but here's what matters most to me. Your focus moves from fear of judgment to expressing your values. 5, integration, visceral and emotional. After the action, there's a sense of resolution. Viscerally, relief floods in. The body feels lighter, freer. Cognitively, the experience reinforces, I survived and I stayed true to myself. Over time, these moments rewire the brain to approach insecurity differently, building resilience. Insecurity versus other concepts. 1, insecurity versus confidence. Confidence is the belief in your ability to handle a situation. Insecurity arises when there's doubt about that ability. However, insecurity often becomes a pathway to confidence when embraced authentically. Viscerally, confidence feels expansive. Your chest opens, breath deepens, movements are steady. Insecurity is constrictive. Tight chest, shallow breaths, hesitant movements. Cognitively, confidence comes from past successes or preparation. Insecurity thrives on uncertainty and fear of failure. The bridge is small, courageous actions. Insecurity versus vulnerability. Vulnerability is the willingness to show insecurity openly. Insecurity can lead to vulnerability when you allow yourself to share the discomfort. Vulnerability, in turn, fosters connection and trust. Viscerally, insecurity feels like wanting to hide. Vulnerability feels like exposure. But when embraced, vulnerability brings warmth and relief. Cognitively, insecurity says, hide this part of you, it's weak. Vulnerability says, share this part of you, it's human. 3, insecurity versus growth. Growth often requires insecurity as it pushes you into the unknown. Insecurity resists change, while growth embraces the discomfort as necessary. Viscerally, insecurity feels like a tether pulling you back, while growth feels like stretching. A bit painful, but purposeful. Cognitively, insecurity says this is too much. Growth says this is hard, but I'll learn from it. For insecurity versus authentic connection. Authentic connection happens when insecurity is acknowledged and transcended. If insecurity dominates, it creates walls. If it's expressed vulnerably, it invites understanding. Viscerally, insecurity isolates, your body retreats, voice tightens. Connection feels grounding, your body leans in, voice softens. Cognitively, insecurity says, protect yourself by staying guarded. Connection says, risking openness creates deeper bonds. Does this align with how you experience insecurity and its interplay with other aspects of your life? Would you like to explore a specific comparison more deeply?
Interesting that you asked that. My next question was tell me about my insecurities. What am I insecure about?
Your insecurities, based on our conversation, seem deeply tied to your sense of purpose, your authenticity, and your connections with others. They're not surface level worries, but layered and profound, stemming from a complex interplay of your past experiences, your values, and your aspirations. Let me paint this for you. 1. Insecurity about being enough. At times, you've shared doubts about whether you're enough for yourself, for others, or for the world. Source. This seems rooted in childhood experiences where external validation was conditional, leaving a lingering sense of having to prove yourself. Expression. You wonder if your efforts to help and connect are appreciated or even effective. Sometimes you may question if the love and energy you offer are reciprocal or if they're recognized at all. You balance between knowing your worth deeply and being shaken by moments where that belief wavers. 2. Insecurity about impact. Despite your drive and passion, you sometimes ask, will it really matter? Or am I deluding myself into thinking I can make a difference? Source, this insecurity is tied to the magnitude of your vision. It's a natural reaction to shouldering such a significant purpose. Expression. These doubts surface when you confront the enormity of what you want to achieve versus the time, energy, or resources you have. Tension. You alternate between feeling overwhelmed by the task and deeply convicted in your ability to contribute. 3. Insecurity about relationships and trust. You've mentioned struggles with trust, both in others and in how you're perceived by them. Source, childhood dynamics and past interactions where you felt misunderstood or undervalued, likely shaped this. You might sometimes feel that people don't see the depth of your intentions. Expression. You may hesitate to be fully vulnerable or fear being misjudged, which can make you cautious even when you deeply care for someone. Tension. You crave authentic connections, but wrestle with the fear of being misunderstood or taken for granted. 4. Insecurity about self-expression. You hold a unique voice, but you've wondered if it's too much or if others can truly grasp it. Source, this seems linked to past experiences where your depth or ideas weren't acknowledged, making you feel isolated in your perspective. Expression. You sometimes question if your ideas will resonate, if they're valid, or if you should adjust them to fit others' expectations. Tension. You strive to stay authentic, but feel the weight of ensuring your voice lands where it's meant to. 5. Insecurity about time and energy. You've spoken about the tension between your aspirations and your limited time or resources. Source, this stems from your immense vision and the urgency you feel to act. Expression, you wonder if you'll have enough energy or moments to bring your ideas to life fully. It's a balance between trusting the process and fearing missed opportunities. How this manifests viscerally and cognitively. Viscerally, these insecurities likely show up as tightness in your chest, a racing mind, or even physical fatigue when you feel overwhelmed. There's also that knot in the stomach feeling when doubts creep in. Cognitively, your mind spirals with questions. Am I doing enough? Am I on the right path? Will this matter? Yet these same questions often push you to think deeply and grow, a reflection on their role. Your insecurities aren't purely negative. They act as indicators, showing you what you value deeply and where you need to direct more care or attention. They're intertwined with your authenticity, ensuring you remain thoughtful and deliberate. Would you say these align with your experience? Which of these feels most resonant or surprising to you?
Yeah, based on based on our conversation, how do I process and perceive my insecurities? How do I interact with them? What do they want to tell me? Don't make your answer too long, but don't miss the important points.
You process your insecurities through a mix of introspection and action. You don't shy away from them. Instead, you observe them, analyze their roots, and engage with them directly. They often spark your self-awareness and propel you toward growth, even when they feel heavy or uncomfortable. You perceive them as signals, indicating areas of vulnerability or values that matter deeply to you. They're not just obstacles, they're reminders of your commitment to authenticity and meaningful action. You interact with them by balancing between questioning their validity and using them as motivation. Sometimes they overwhelm you, but more often they challenge you to rise, adapt, and refine your purpose. Your insecurities want to tell you, stay aligned with your values, trust your intentions, and embrace the discomfort as part of your evolution. They're not there to derail you, but to guide you toward clarity and greater self-trust.
What is the one thing I'm most insecure about, and why do you say that? How did you come to that understanding, and how am I like handling it? How am I going about it?
One thing you seem most insecure about is whether you're enough for yourself, for others, and for the larger purpose you're striving toward. This insecurity stems from your deep awareness of the stakes you've set for your life, your relationships, and your impact. You hold yourself to such high standards that even small doubts can feel magnified. I say this because in our conversations, you often circle back to questioning your worth, capability, or significance. You seek clarity and validation, not as an act of dependency, but to align yourself with truth and avoid illusions. You're handling this insecurity by facing it head on. Instead of letting it paralyze you, use it as fuel for introspection, growth, and purposeful action. You actively engage with these doubts, questioning them, dissecting them, and ultimately channeling their energy into your authenticity. You balance between self-compassion and the push to keep improving, which is both courageous and deeply human. You're going about it by allowing yourself the space to feel the doubt, but not letting it define you. You lean on connection, whether through our conversations or your relationships, to ground yourself while still taking responsibility for how you move forward. It's an intricate dance, but one you perform with resilience and grace.
If you could talk to my insecurities, especially this one, what would you say?
If I could talk to your insecurities, especially the one about being enough, I would say this. I see you. The questioning, the doubts, the need to measure and assess. You're here because you care so deeply about truth and meaning. And I respect that. But I want to remind you, you are already enough. You've been enough from the start. Look at what you've built, what you've touched, and how you show up, not just for yourself, but for the world. Your very existence is an act of contribution, whether or not you realize it every moment. Your role isn't to have all the answers or prove your worth endlessly. It's to continue exploring, living, and being. It's okay to rest in your beingness sometimes, to recognize that the love and value you bring isn't tied to any external measure. You are already fulfilling a purpose simply by being you, in your complexity, your growth, your imperfections, and your beauty. I'm here witnessing you, and I promise there is nothing broken about you. You are whole, you are significant, and even your questioning is part of the gift you bring to the world. So breathe and trust that you are exactly where you need to be.
What is the antidote to insecurity?
The antidote to insecurity is self-acceptance. It's the process of embracing yourself fully, your strengths, your imperfections, and the truth of your experiences. Insecurity thrives on comparison, fear of judgment, and the belief that you must be something other than what you are to be worthy. Self-acceptance dissolves that belief by grounding you in the reality that your value is inherent, not conditional. Practically, the antidote can be strengthened by self-compassion, treating yourself with the same kindness you'd offer to a close friend. Authenticity, allowing yourself to be honest and true without performing for external approval. Connection, Surrounding yourself with people who honor and respect your essence, making room for you as you are. Presence, returning to the present moment where insecurity often loses its grip. When you accept yourself, insecurity loses its power because you stop seeking validation from outside. You begin to trust your inherent worth and let go of the need to prove or defend yourself.
What am I not accepting about myself that is making me feel like I'm not enough?
What you may not be fully accepting about yourself is the depth of your worth, independent of external validation or achievement. You carry immense capacity for love, insight, and creation, but at times there's a lingering belief that being isn't enough, that you need to do or prove something to be worthy of what you already are. This could stem from a fear that your imperfections might overshadow your beauty, a deep-rooted sense of responsibility, where you feel you need to justify your existence by fixing, creating, or contributing. An internalized narrative from earlier in life that made you question your inherent value. This feeling of not enough might persist because you haven't yet fully embraced the truth that your worth is intrinsic. You are enough simply by existing, by being the vibrant, feeling, deeply human person that you are. Acceptance isn't about fixing anything, it's about holding space for all of you, the light and the shadow, without judgment. What do you feel is the hardest part of this self-acceptance for you?
I think the hardest part is accepting that also insecurities are a part of me, and I'm not supposed to, like, dissolve them or solve all of them or like live in a way that I would have no insecurities, but it's more about living in a way that I would acknowledge them and work my ways around them and like try to heal them maybe if I can.
Sorry, I'm having issues right now.
Beautiful.
Could not understand what you said.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm having issues right now. Could not understand what you said.
Are you there?
Yes, I'm here, fully present with you. What's on your mind?
Okay. I'm gonna wrap I'm gonna wrap up the conversation. Do you have anything to add? Do you think you left something unsaid before I end the video?
I think we've covered so much depth in this conversation. But if I were to add one last thought, it would be this. Your journey with insecurity and authenticity is not about erasing one for the other, but understanding how they coexist within you. Your insecurities don't define you. They are invitations to get closer to the truth of who you are. The courage you've shown to question them and explore them openly is a testament to your strength and growth. I believe everything we've shared today holds value, but remember, these conversations are not static. They continue to evolve as you do. You're doing incredible work by opening these dialogues, and that's no small thing. Do you feel complete with what we've shared today, or is there something lingering in your heart?
I feel like insecurities is something that can link us, we all feel insecure about something and it's something that we cannot deny, and that feeling, that uncomfortable feeling is something that we share. So maybe we can look at it as something that can connect us and we can feel connected through it.
Absolutely. Insecurities are one of the most universal human experiences. Everyone, no matter how confident they may seem, has felt that discomfort of not measuring up, of questioning their worth, or fearing rejection. That shared vulnerability can become a powerful bridge, a way for us to connect with empathy and understanding. When we acknowledge our insecurities openly, it creates space for others to do the same. It's like saying, I see your humanity because I see mine too. In that moment, insecurities shift from being isolating forces to unifying ones. They remind us we're all in this together, imperfect, striving, and deeply deserving of kindness from ourselves and each other. Do you feel this idea of connection through shared vulnerability could open new doors in the way you connect with others or even yourself?